I figure we will touch base a little bit and a little introduction. Although we're going to learn some Shulchan Aruch, but we're just going to get our feet wet today. Obviously, as we go further into the Shulchan Aruch, it gets a lot deeper. First of all, just thank you everyone for joining. This is great. The fact that we can get together on a Tuesday night, study some halacha in these times. Any learning of Torah is fundamental, and to obviously our whole existence, the world's existence, but even the world of COVID, we need all the time that we can have, all the learning that we can get, and anything that we can learn is great. All right, so we're just going to touch get our feet wet. We're going to learn a little bit of introduction, answer a few little questions, and we'll continue next week, and we'll go deeper. So I don't know if you have a Shulchan Aruch in front of you, but if you don't, I'll just read it. I did post a link before if you wanted to follow in Sefaria. I think Yaakov posted on the chat as well a Hebrew Books copy. But let's just get right into it, and we'll learn. And again, I have my own notes here that I had from when I studied this during my study for Smicha, because Basar BeHalav is one of those things that you really need to know when you study Smicha. And so I'll just go about with my notes. But again, if you have any questions, which I'm sure you will, I guarantee you we're going to cover it as we go through this. So we're on Siman Pei Zayin Halacha Aleph. Halacha Aleph. So let's see. Shulchan Aruch writes, Katuv b'Torah lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo gimel pe'amim. That the Torah writes the commandment to not cook a kid in its mother's milk 3 times. Echad le'isur bishul. The first time or one time is to prohibit that of cooking meat and milk. Be'echad le'isur achila. The other one is to prohibit eating meat and milk. Be'echad le'isur hana'ah. And the other one would be to prohibit benefiting, having hana'ah from meat and milk, for a combination of meat and milk. Vehotzi achila bilshon bishul, lomar she'eno asur min haTorah ela derech bishul. The fact that the Torah used the lashon of bishul, lo tevashel gedi, that's the lashon of don't cook a kid in its mother milk, is to teach me that only bishul is asur min haTorah. Only cooking is something that is asur min haTorah. Aval midrabanan asur bechol inyan. But rabbinically, it is asur for all 3. Says the Rama, Kol basar BeHalav she'eno asur min haTorah mutar ba'ana. The Rama actually says here that any mixture of meat and milk that is not prohibited from the Torah is actually permitted to be used for hana'ah. We're going to learn that not everybody holds like this. There are those that say not so. Specifically, the Taz brings down the Rashal, who says that that's not the case. That if it just because it's not asur min haTorah doesn't necessarily mean that you can have benefit from it. And by benefit, we don't mean eating. We mean, like, let's say selling it to a non-Jew. That would be having benefit from it. But the Rama seems to say it's allowed if it's not asur min haTorah. Let's read one more halacha and then we'll discuss a little bit. Halacha Bet says, Gedi lav davka. Even though the Torah uses the word Gedi is a kid, a baby goat, lav davka. It doesn't only mean a Gedi. Dehu adin shor se ve'ez. It also applies to an ox, or a sheep, or a goat, or of course even a cow. Velo shena BeHalav em velo shena BeHalav acheret ela shediber hakatuv behove. It makes no difference if it's a chalav em, if it's a mother's milk, and it makes no difference if it's chalav acheret, a different milk. But the Torah only speaks behove, what is normal. The normal is cow's milk. That's what normally, or the milk of the animal, the milk of the mother. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that. So those are the first 2 halachot of Siman Pei Zayin. So I'm going to put away my Shulchan Aruch, and we'll discuss a little bit of that, and we're going to see some interesting things over here. So first of all, it's important to know that anything that is considered asur bahana'ah, any mixture that you cannot have any benefit from, and that could be basar BeHalav for our case. That's what we're discussing. Sometimes it could mean a chametz on Pesach, but in this case, it's not necessarily right. Chametz on, but basar BeHalav, if it's a category of basar BeHalav, the Gemara says, based on the Mishnah, that is considered min hanikbarim. Min hanikbarim means it's an item that needs to be buried, or min hanisrafim, or it must be burned. So that's why if you have a chametz on Pesach, if you find chametz on Pesach, okay, what do you have to do with that chametz? You have to get rid of it. You have to flush it down the toilet, not on Yom Tov, but after Yom Tov you have to burn it or flush it or get rid of it, because in the category of min hanikbarim or min hanisrafim. So now that I take this cheeseburger, okay, that's what we're going to use. Would you rather cheeseburger or pepperoni pizza? Your choice. I don't know. Let's say cheeseburger, because the pepperoni's, it's probably not kosher. Probably, who knows. So let's get a cheeseburger. So I cheeseburger, now I'm supposed to burn it, right? That's what I'm saying. It's mina nikbarim. Now I have ashes. So I have ashes of my cheeseburger. It's now burnt into a crisp. The ashes are asur. Even the ashes are asur. The Rambam writes that the ashes of basar BeHalav mixture is asur. There are those that say it's mutar because there's no chalav left in it. There's no milk. All the milk has been drawn, and now you're left with ashes. But nevertheless, we Sfaradim, we're going to be posek like the Rambam, that even the ashes of a basar BeHalav that was burnt, you can't choose. Now, before we go any further, we need to learn the basics of what is considered cooking. What does cooking mean? When I say you cooked meat and milk, what are the different types of cooking? And these ideas, these concepts are very important to know, not just now for basar BeHalav, but also when it comes to Hilchot Shabbat, which who knows, maybe one day we'll also learn this. What is considered cooking on Shabbat? Kli Rishon, Kli Sheni. These are terms that you may have heard before. Some of you may be familiar with them, but it's always good to go over them. So let's just go through them. If you have food, meat and milk, you have a beef stew and milk, 2%, okay, in a Kli Rishon. A Kli Rishon is a pot that is on the fire. That is a Kli Rishon, the first vessel. There is no question that mixture is asur mideoraita. Asur mideoraita. You cooked in a Kli Rishon, a pot on the stove, or if it was removed from the stove, it still has a din of a Kli Rishon, as long as the food is Yad Solid Bo, as we're going to see. Yad Solid Bo is a temperature that you would put your hand in, and it would jump out as a result of the heat. So if the pot is on the stove and it didn't reach Yad Solid Bo, let's say it's between 43 and 49 degrees Celsius. So if it's on the stove, it's warming up, but it didn't reach that temperature, or it was removed from the stove and it cooled below 43 degrees Celsius, then that's not called cooking mideoraita. You're not chayav mideoraita from the Torah of cooking meat and milk. So that's the first type, cooking with Kli Rishon. Second is called irui. Irui means pouring. So irui mikli rishon means pouring on something hot onto meat and milk. So for example, I have my fresh I have a beef patty, a burger, and I got cheese, and I take boiling hot water that just came off the stove, and irui kli rishon, I pour it right on it. So this also has the ability to cook when it's lo nifsak hakiluach. That's when the water does not, the stream from the kli, the water streaming down from whatever you're pouring is not broken. It's direct. If it's broken up, we're going to see the law is different. But if the irui kli rishon, if you take a pot and you pour it onto the cheese and the beef patty, okay, it's we're going to see it's actually a safek mideoraita if it cooks kedei klipa or not. It definitely you definitely have to remove a little bit of that, but but it could be even a deoraita. Now, food in a kli sheni. Kli sheni is the second pot. Okay, so now I took a pot of hot water. Okay, and I poured it into a second pot. That becomes kli sheni. Now I take my meatballs, and my meatballs are stuffed with mozzarella. I'm using different examples. My meatballs are stuffed with mozzarella, and I take the meatballs and I put it in the kli sheni. That is asur midrabanan. It's asur midrabanan. It's not deoraita because only a kli rishon can cook. But drabanan, I put it in. It's still asur midrabanan because we say a kli sheni can even cook drabanan. Another way to cook. So that's third, by the way. So we have kli rishon, we have irui pouring, and we have kli sheni. Another way, the fourth, is called cham letoch tzonen. Cham letoch tzonen is hot food that falls onto cold food. Okay? That's also asur kedei klipa. Klipa is, I know I mentioned this, I should have explained, is like the layer of a fingernail. That's kedei klipa. So if I take hot milk and I pour it onto cold meat, okay? That is asur midrabanan. The meat wasn't hot, but the milk was. So it's the klipa, the shell of the burger needs to be removed, okay? And it's asur midrabanan. Then you have tzili. Tzili is called roasting. The korban pesach is eno nechal ela tzali, right? That's what we say. That's what we say in the korbanot every morning. The tzali is when you roast meat or milk together. I don't know, it's hard to roast milk. I don't know how that would be possible, but maybe roasting something, cheese or what. So tzali is actual form of cooking, and that's asur mideoraita. According to everyone, tzali is a form of cooking, and it's asur. Then you have frying. Frying is called in Hebrew tigun, and that is machloket whether it's asur deoraita or not. According to the Pri Chadash, it's midoraita. Minchat Yaakov, it's midrabanan. According to many Sephardic poskim, it's considered deoraita. Number 7 is called melicha. Melicha is salting or pickling, right? So if basically the idea is that if meat and milk are sitting in a liquid that has the ability to pickle for a 24-hour period, all right? Pickling is for 24 hours, and if it's a really, really strong liquid, it could even even after 18 minutes, it could start to cook midrabanan. So therefore, that's also a way of cooking. And the last is me'ushan. Me'ushan is smoking, but not smoking a cigarette, using like a smoker. You have a smoker, like I don't know if you guys own smokers where you put the meat or a brisket in as smoking, right? So that's also a form of cooking. And we're going to talk about that later. So those are 8 different types of cooking that we're all going to see in this not this siman, but into the section of Basar BeHalav. So now, Basar BeHalav, we said, is mina nikbarim. It has to be buried. And the reason why it's buried, or has to be buried, is so that nobody can touch it. We don't want anybody to eat from this Basar BeHalav. We don't want anyone to eat from the chametz on Pesach, so we got to get rid of it. Can you flush it down the toilet? Yeah, you can flush it down the toilet. That's considered a burning as well. Now, it should not be given to a dog. It should not be given to a dog, even if it's not yours. And even if one has no hana'ah from it whatsoever, it shouldn't be given to a dog. It's got to be mina nikbarim or mina nisrafim, buried or burned. Some say that only applies to chametz. You shouldn't give it to a dog. But to basar bechalav, it's okay. There's a Mishnah Brura that in Hilchot Pesach that brings down that is machmir. That is machmir even by basar bechalav. When he's talking about the chametz, not to give it to a dog, he's machmir even by basar bechalav. So therefore, as a result, what do we learn from here? Technically, if I have a mixture of meat and milk, I shouldn't throw it into the garbage. If I throw it into a garbage, what's the problem? Especially here in Toronto. What's going to come and show up on your doorstep every Thursday morning when you put out the garbage? Right? Raccoons. Right? I don't know. Maybe I think in your area maybe a different day. Cordoba residents. It's not Thursday, right? Monday. All right, okay. So by me it's Thursday. So when you put out the garbage, you got your basar bechalav in there. Now you're not thinking of that. You're not thinking of that, but a raccoon's gonna go eat your garbage. It's supposed to be mina nikbarim or mina nisrafim, not mean the raccoon or mean the animal. We had actually this problem this past Pesach when residents of where I live, where the isur of Pesach of Chametz was on Wednesday, and that's when Pesach was Wednesday night. But the garbage wasn't taken till Thursday, so it's a big problem. What do we do? What do we do with that Chametz? A, it's still in our possession, and B, you have animals. You have animals that can eat the chametz when it's already asur. So what I told people to do was to take bleach, whatever you remember that you throw out that was actually chametz, is to pour bleach on it, right? And therefore, at least you get that out of the way. But otherwise, you gotta, it's an issue. So same thing here. Throwing out basar bechalav in the garbage is a problem because of the raccoons. Okay. So now an interesting question brought down by the Pitchei Tshuva. Pitchei Tshuva is one of the big commentaries on Yoreh Deah. And he asked a question. If I had butter is dairy, that was cooked in a ben yomo meat pot. Before I continue, I need to explain what ben yomo is. Because this term you're going to hear a lot. Ben yomo and enan ben yomo. Ben yomo means the pot was used within the last 24 hours. That's what ben yomo is. Not ben yomo is it wasn't used in the last 24 hours. It's the first question any rabbi will ask a person when they call about a meat and milk question. It's the first thing. Rabbi, this is what happened. I cooked this. When was the pot last used? Is it 24 hours or before 24 hours? So we're going to learn all that later on. But here, the Pitchei Tshuva is giving a very interesting case. What if I have butter that was cooked in a ben yomo meat pot, which means the pot is less than 24 hours, and therefore is a problem because the taste, all what was absorbed in the pot, the meat that was absorbed in the pot is fresh. It's within 24 hours, it still has a good taste to it. After 24 hours, we say that what was absorbed in the pot is pagum, spoils anything. But within 24 hours, it's still good. So if I have butter that was put in the meat pot, okay, and now it's mixed with what was absorbed, can I use, ready for the question? Can I use it as oil to light the Hanukkah candles? Oh, good question. All right, can I use that oil? We have a mixture of meat and milk, butter, and there's some meat in there. Okay, you can use butter. It's a fat. It has the ability to light. Can I use it to light Hanukkah candles? So on one hand, you would say that this butter that is asur to eat, obviously, you're allowed to use for Hanukkah because there's no hana'ah derived from the mitzvah. But there's a reason to make this oil or this butter even asur for Chanukah, because that which is asur behana'ah, something that you cannot have any benefit, is not considered having a shi'ur. And for nerot Chanukah, you need to have a shi'ur, correct? You have to have enough oil so that it lights for 30 minutes, at least, lefachot 30 minutes. After tzet. At least, even if it doesn't light, we know that even if it shuts off on its own, you're still fulfilling a mitzvah. But you have to have enough oil to begin with. But if something is asur b'hana'ah, this butter mixed with meat is asur b'hana'ah, like we said. You can't have any benefit. So therefore, there's no shiur. So you can't use it for the light to light the Chanukah candles. So the Pitchei Tshuva is giving this reason. Then he brings another reason, and he says even the wick. By lighting the wick, you might be even cooking basar bechalav, because the wick absorbs the butter, that butter which is mixed with meat absorptions from the pot. You light the wick, you're cooking basar bechalav. But the Pri Megadim again another big commentary on Yoreh Deah, says that if meat and milk were both cooked separately, such as this case, the meat was cooked in the pot and then gone, and then the butter was cooked separately. Although it was in the pot, it was cooked separately. Um, then you cook them together, okay? There would not be an isur of basar BeHalav. You might still have the issue of the hana, but you said you wouldn't be chayav on cooking basar BeHalav if they were cooked separately and then conjoined. So that's a pre-megadim. We spoke about the animals that the Torah lists is a kid, is a gedi, but we said it applies to other animals. And the Aruch HaShulchan says we make a kal vachomer. We can make a kal vachomer from the mother's milk to any other milk. So what's a kal vachomer? Even though the mother's milk and the kid were at one time the same body, the kid came from the mother and the milk comes from the mother, and they are asur if they're cooked together, then kal vachomer, all the more so, milk from another behema, milk from another animal is asur if cooked with a kid, since they were never from the same goof. All right, so that's it, the kal vachomer of the Aruch HaShulchan. So some interesting questions, and from this, and then we'll sign off for tonight. I told you we're just going to have a short little introduction, and then we'll go a little bit deeper next week when we'll talk about chickens and almond milk. So now question: what if a non-Jew cooks basar BeHalav? Is it asur b'hana? Am I allowed to have benefit from it, or is it prohibited for me to have benefit? I know that if I cook meat and milk, I can't have benefit, but what if a non-Jew? So yeah, the Yalkut Yosef actually brings this down, and he's strict that cooking basar BeHalav in the olden days was actually a form of idol worship. It was a form of avodah zarah, and therefore he says there's no heter to have any benefit from meat and milk cooked by a non-Jew. There are those that say it's allowed that you're allowed to have hana, because the whole reason why it's asur to cook meat and milk is because you're going to come to eat meat and milk. But if the non-Jew is cooking it, we already know you can't eat any food from the non-Jew because of bishul akum. Right? I'm not allowed to eat food that was cooked by a non-Jew. So I'm not worried that I'm going to go out and eat that food. I may be worried if I cook it because I cooked it, and therefore I may eat the basar BeHalav. But if a non-Jew cooks it, I know I can't eat from the non-Jew. So what's the big deal? So there are those that say it's permitted. But like I said, Yalkut Yosef holds that is actually one should be mahmir. And because A was considered a form of idol worship. Can you throw, we touched upon this, but can I throw meat and milk in a garbage can? Even at separate occasions, right? Separate occasion. One thing, I can't throw a cheeseburger because of the animals. But but again, we have to think, if I cooked meat in a pot, and I'm throwing away that meat, hot oil, in my garbage, okay? And in the garbage, right in the garbage, you open up, you see a leftover slice of pizza, okay? And I'm pouring that oil onto the pizza. It's a problem, because we said that irui, remember the first thing we talked about, irui, pouring, is a form of cooking. It's called cooking. Now, if that's not happening, then it's not a problem, okay? If they're both cold, there's nothing wrong. If I put cold meat and cold pizza in the garbage, it's not an issue. So one of the big questions that we're going to see later on is about the dishwasher. This is the famous psak of Rav Ovadia, of the dishwasher. This is, a lot of people say, because you have hot water in the dishwasher, that's why you cannot use meat and milk at the same time. Sorry, someone called me. One can't use meat and milk at the same time in the dishwasher because hot water is being used, and you're technically cooking whatever remnants of food is left over. You can't do it. So Rav Ovadia gave his famous psak, which we're going to see later on. We're going to learn it, how the soap acts as like a poison, as it acts as something to spoil, to make pagum anything that's there. That's his reasoning why he allows meat and milk dishwashers, a dishwasher to be used for meat and milk even at the same time. because the soap acts as an agent to spoil anything there. That nothing's being cooked really. You're like killing the food, like bleach. So therefore, he permits it. But again, it would have been a problem for sure if you don't use soap. You have a problem because again, the hot water is cooking both the meat and milk that's in there. Another question is, can I cook liver with milk? So now you're probably thinking, but liver, why would I think I'm allowed to cook liver with milk? So the answer is because liver is actually made out of blood. Liver is made out of blood. So now we think of liver as meat, but it's made of blood. The only way to kosher liver, for example, is you have to roast it on the fire. You can't salting liver doesn't help. You have to slit it, all right, shtiva erev, and you have to roast it on the fire. And fresh. That's the only way to cook liver. So So do I look as liver as blood, and I'm allowed to cook milk with blood, but I can't? Or do I look at it as a type of meat? So it seems to be that the Shulchan Aruch, quoting the Rambam, says that that it's not allowed. Liver has the din of Basar, and also the many Sephardic poskim hold that liver has a din of meat. A person can't cook liver with meat. Any other? Let's see if there are any issues over here.
Let's say it was considered blood, but you can't eat it because it's blood.
No, assuming you've pulled out the blood and you've roasted it, then you've done what you had to do, right? Obviously, raw liver is a problem. You can't eat raw liver. Most of the liver actually that sells in the store are not. You have to roast it on your own, or it has to be said it's been koshered or extracted from the blood. If a person cooks meat in a ben yomo milk pot, so again you just made macaroni and cheese, and 30 minutes later somebody cooks meat in that pot. So the question is that meat asur midoraita? Or because there was no milk in the pot, it was just used within the last half an hour, maybe the food is mutar. And the clear answer, like we mentioned, the food is asur midoraita. Even though there's no milk that went into the meat, there's enough of a taste of milk to go in to make it called tam ke'ikar. Tam ke'ikar means there is the taste of the ikar. The milk that was absorbed in the pot went into the meat, and now you're tasting a little bit of the milk. This is going to lead us later on, this whole concept of 60 times. That when you have something that is 60 times more, if there was so much meat in that pot that there was 60 times more meat than the milk that was absorbed in the pot, then there's no more ta'am keikar. There's no more actual taste of milk. So even if it did happen by accident, obviously, or even if it didn't happen, the meat remains kasher, okay? Because anything that went in, it doesn't have an effect, and b'diavad you can have that meat, okay? But if there's not 60 times, vadai, the food is asur midoraita. So that gives us a little bit of.
What about the kli?
The kli we're gonna get to. Yeah, we're gonna get to. Yeah. Those are great questions. What you have to do with the kli? What does it belong to? Is it meat? Is it milk? Do you have to kosher it? Those are things we're gonna get to later on. But this gives us a little introduction of what we're dealing. We covered a lot of good concepts today. Nice to see BeYaakov. Welcome. Nice to see you. But don't worry, BeYaakov. I recorded it. I'm going to put it on the chat. All right, so you can take a listen to it, and we'll conclude here, and then we'll see you guys Bezrat Hashem. Again, I'm not here for the remainder of the week. I'll be on Zoom, but it's not in person, and hopefully we'll see you guys next Tuesday when we'll learn the next siman, next seif.
Rob, about the kava chomer for the mother's milk. I don't like that at all. What is that?
It's a different type of kava.
Shouldn't that be more strict? It's the more lenient option. Like if it's from the mother, why is it more strict?
Okay, you would think they were together in the same. They were together in the same goof. Hey, the milk and the meat were together from the same goof. If they're not from the same goof, vadai, yeah, it can't be, right?
But Rob, even if it's let's say the milk that was in the mother at the time, then once the kid's born, right, and there's like a new cycle, new milk comes in, and that milk wasn't in the same at the same.
Yeah, but the wording of the Torah is Gedi B'Halav Imo, with the milk of his mother. So if the Gedi comes out, and or is born, and we say, yeah, I want to eat this kid now. All right away. Yeah, I want to cook it with milk. 10 minutes ago, it was in the same mother, right? But you can't.
It wasn't in the milk.
It wasn't in the milk, but it was one goof. It was one body. So that's what the Aruch HaShulchan says, that you can, it is, kal vachomer, a different animal, something from a cow, milk from a cow, vada you can't.
It makes sense, but like in this case, I don't understand how you choose which one's kal and which one's chomer, because
Okay, your question. I hear what you're saying, but the kal is the kid from the actual mother.
Can you throw something in about like rachamim? Like you don't want to put a kid in the mother's. Like, can you make that argument? That's the reason why maybe the kid
again. So we spoke about at the beginning many reasons. Or again, someone asked. I can't remember who it was. It was I think it was Yaakov that asked if it was a chok. All of kashrut is a chok, but we there are Kabbalistic reasons why we do this. Certainly, what Yaakov is saying now, I have seen written somewhere, though I didn't. I don't remember where exactly it was. Like, it's just cruel. So, right, cruel to take a kid and cook it in the mother's milk. But according to that logic, that means if it's not from the actual mother, it's not a problem, right? So there's other reasons as well. I gave a reason of this concept of mixing blood and white. Blood corresponds to din, strict judgment, and white corresponds to rahamim, a more merciful action. And those are things that we have to be wary of and make sure that they don't combine and join together.
Why wouldn't it just say? Why wouldn't it just say you can't cook in milk at all? Like, why didn't it say it's mother's milk? That seems to specify. Okay, just the mother's milk, no? And it
so that's actually something we're going to talk about. Next. It's funny you mention it because just in Daf Yomi now we talked about. I think it was Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef it was a story. Rabbi Yosef used to eat chicken with milk, right? Because he held, because the Torah says the word imo, that the prohibition is only something that has a mother that has milk. Chickens don't give milk, right? So therefore, it's okay. So he ate chicken with milk. It brought down the Gemara Beferus, right? Unbelievable. The famous Rabbi Yosef, the Tana, he ate chicken with milk. The chicken with milk is going to be next week's topic. That's the next Saif is going to be talking about chicken and almond milk, right? And we know that the Chachamim prohibited it, but we see that many of the Tanaim, or at least Rabbi Yosef, would eat it because of that reason, because of imo. So vadai, an animal that does have imo milk, which is almost many other ones. You have to do. But again, lav dafka. We're gonna see the issue with milk. We're gonna talk about breast milk, for example. Human milk can it be eaten with that? Those are all things that Shulhan Aruch addresses as we go on.
One more thing. If the entire thing is like a hook, then how does that call of humor doesn't make sense then? Because shouldn't it be going off the reasoning why? Like if you're just saying when you have a call of humor, it's based off the actual reason. Like if we don't know exactly why this is done, then how do you know what's the cause? You know what I mean?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
You said that you don't know the exact reason. Let's just say the reason was because you don't want to be cruel to the animal.
Okay.
Then call of humor would not work here. How do we know that this call of humor is strong if the actual reasoning for why you can't do it is not apparent?
That's assuming that reason is the correct reason, right?
Yeah.
But
I'm saying the call of humor that we use kind of assumes. Well, I'm saying, what does it assume is the reason, or does it not have a reason?
as far as I'm concerned, there is no exact reason why the Torah prohibited meat and milk. As far as I'm concerned, it's a hulk. There are Kabbalistic reasons. There are logical reasons, such as the one you said. And this type of kal vachomer is actually one that is constructed by logic. If you think about it, right? It makes sense not to cook the kid in the mother's milk. Otherwise, it wouldn't carry the same punishment as um, otherwise, meaning cooking it in a different animal's milk wouldn't carry the same punishment as one cooked in its mother's milk. So that maybe there is that concept of rachamim, but I see what you're saying. It's a difficult kavachomer. It's not the typical kavachomer that we normally employ. Um, but all right, okay, guys. Chazaku Baruch. I'll post this on the chat, and we'll see you guys soon. Have a great night.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Be well.